Rain lashed the bookstore windows, blurring the streetlights into halos of yellow. Eleanor shivered, pulling her cardigan tighter. Closing time. The bell above the door chimed mournfully as she turned the lock. She hated this walk, the emptiness of Main Street after hours always unsettling, especially in the rain. Her heels clicked against the damp pavement, each sound echoing in the silence. A shiver ran down her spine. It wasn't just the emptiness. A prickling sensation lingered at the back of her neck, a feeling of being watched. Eleanor quickened her pace, clutching her purse tighter. She glanced over her shoulder, scanning the darkened doorways and shuttered storefronts. Nothing, just the relentless rain and the echo of her own footsteps. Still, the feeling persisted. Irrational, she told herself, just nerves. Reaching for her phone, she saw a message from Mark. Her heart leaped. "Don't come home," it read. "It's not safe." A wave of dizziness washed over her. Not safe? What did that even mean? She tried calling, but the call went straight to voicemail. Panic twisted in her gut. Had something happened? Was he hurt? Eleanor's fingers flew across the keypad, a second message flashing on the screen before she could finish typing. "He's here. Pretending." The words hung in the air, cold and sharp as shards of glass. He? Who was he talking about? Fear pulsed through her, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. Mark wouldn't joke about something like this. He couldn't be. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the cryptic messages. Had someone broken in? Was he being threatened? She had to get to him. Ignoring the gnawing unease, Eleanor broke into a run, the rain stinging her face. The house stood at the end of their street, a dark silhouette against the stormy sky. As Eleanor approached, she saw the porch light was on, casting a warm glow on the wet pavement. Relief flooded her, momentarily eclipsing the fear. Mark was home. He was safe. She fumbled with the keys, her hand shaking. The door swung open, revealing Mark standing in the entryway, a relieved smile spreading across his face. "Ellie, thank God you're all right." He pulled her into a tight embrace, the familiar scent of his cologne enveloping her. Eleanor clung to him, burying her face in the warmth of his chest. "Mark, what's going on?" "Your messages." He pulled back, his brow furrowed with concern. "Messages? I haven't sent any messages, Ellie. I've been worried sick about you." His voice was steady, his touch reassuring. Yet something felt off, a subtle shift, like a painting slightly askew. Eleanor stepped back, her pulse quickening. "But my phone," she stammered, pulling it out to show him. The messages were gone. Had she imagined them? No, the fear was still too real, a knot of dread in the pit of her stomach. "What is it, Ellie? You're shaking." Mark's voice was closer now, his hand reaching out to touch her arm. She flinched at his touch, his hand. It was then that she noticed it, a small silver ring on his pinky finger, a ring she'd never seen before. "Mark, what is that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He glanced down at his hand, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "What? This? It's nothing, just a gift." His voice sounded strained, his gaze darting away from hers. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She backed away slowly, her hand reaching for the doorknob. "I need some air," she mumbled, turning to leave. "Ellie, wait!" Mark's voice was sharp, laced with panic, but it was too late. Eleanor was already running, the sound of her own ragged breaths echoing in her ears. She didn't stop running until she reached the brightly lit sanctuary of the all-night diner a few blocks away. Collapsing into a booth, she ordered coffee, her hands trembling as she raised the mug to her lips. The warmth did little to dispel the icy fear that had gripped her. Who was that man in her house? He looked like Mark, sounded like him, but something about him was different, off-kilter. The messages, the ring, the look in his eyes. It was as if a stranger had worn Mark's face, a chillingly convincing mask. A wave of nausea washed over her. Had Mark been right all along? Had someone been watching them, studying their lives, waiting for the right moment to slip into their world? But why? And what had they done with the real Mark? The questions swirled in her mind, each one more terrifying than the last. Eleanor knew she couldn't stay here, couldn't hide from whatever was happening. She had to find Mark, had to uncover the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. With renewed determination, Eleanor left the diner and hailed a cab. Back at the house, everything seemed eerily normal. The porch light still cast its welcoming glow, and a soft light emanated from the living room window. Taking a deep breath, she approached the front door. This time she didn't bother with the keys. Instead, she walked around the side of the house towards the small study that overlooked the garden. Mark had installed a new lock on the French doors after the break-in last summer. He'd given Eleanor a spare key, just in case. Her fingers brushed against the cool metal of the hidden key box. Relief flooded her as she felt the familiar weight of the key in her hand. She inserted it into the lock, her heart pounding in her chest. As she turned the key, a noise from inside made her freeze. It was a man's voice, humming a tune she recognized. It was their song, the one they danced to on their wedding day. But the voice wasn't coming from the study. It was coming from upstairs, from their bedroom. Eleanor's blood ran cold. He was in the house and he was waiting for her. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it down, forcing herself to think clearly. She had to get help. She had to get out of there. Slipping the key back into her pocket, she retreated silently back down the path, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Reaching the safety of the streetlight, she pulled out her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My husband, she whispered, her voice trembling. There's someone in my house, someone pretending to be him. He's dangerous. Mom, I need you to calm down and tell me your address. Eleanor rattled off their address, her eyes darting back to the house. The lights were still on, but the humming had stopped. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Help is on the way, Mom. Can you tell me if there are any weapons in the house? Weapons? Eleanor's mind raced. No weapons. But even as she said the words, a chilling thought struck her. The nursery. Mark had been setting up the nursery that day, unpacking boxes filled with baby toys and clothes. Their baby, due in a few short months. The thought of their unborn child, alone in that house with that thing, sent a surge of primal fear through her. She had to get to her baby. Ma'am, are you still there? The voice on the other end of the line was insistent, but Eleanor could no longer hear it. She was running again, her fear fueled by a desperate love for a child she had yet to meet. The house was swarming with police when she returned. The flashing lights sliced through the darkness, casting long, distorted shadows on the lawn. Eleanor rushed towards the house, her voice hoarse from screaming Mark's name. A young officer intercepted her, his expression grim. Mom, I need you to stay back. We're securing the scene. My husband? She choked out. Where's my husband? The officer hesitated, his gaze shifting to the house. We haven't located anyone inside, Mom, but we did find this. He held out a small, folded piece of paper. Eleanor's fingers trembled as she took the note, her eyes scanning the hastily scrawled words. He's gone, it read, but I'll be seeing you soon. We have so much to celebrate. The note fluttered to the ground, the ink blurring in the rain. Eleanor stared at the empty doorway, a single terrifying question echoing in the silence. If Mark was gone, who was she carrying their child for?